Good morning, everybody. Let's click these Facebook groups, get them on in here before it's officially time to go. Boom, 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 and boom. All right. Well, welcome in, guys. It is May 2nd, 2022, the first Monday following the draft, and that means it's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I'm Nik Kendell, and joined by, as always, good friend and co-host after a long weekend, Scott Kennedy. Scott, are you feeling awake yet? I've had 2 cups of coffee yet, and I still am just exhausted.
I haven't had my first sip yet, so I'm getting there. So I was one of those where I was tired enough that I fell asleep early and then slept through most of the night. So I actually feel pretty good. It's like I think you're kind of like me. And it's like my idea of like vacations and stuff is pretty exhausting.
Yeah.
I'm not going to party. It's like I'm up at 6 doing stuff all day. I'm in bed at 9. That's
Yeah.
my idea of a vacation. So a busy day yesterday. Draft, sports, weekend. Now what? Now what do we do?
And that's today's show, guys. All right, we'll see you tomorrow. It was a good weekend. I think we were on the air for 16 hours
At least,
combined.
yeah, at least. And then Eric came in and cleaned up last night. Chad texted me while I was at a baseball game. He's like, "It's going to be me and you tonight." And I'm like, "I don't think it is." It turned out I could have because we blew a 5-run lead in the 5th inning, but so it ended up being Eric last night. So Eric luckily still had the lungs to go last night and did a real good job with Chad last night on Mile Huddle. So if you haven't watched that one, check it out. It's a good episode.
All right, well, let's say hello to everybody coming in right now. We got James Hyatt. Good morning, Scott and Nick, favorite Broncos show. Nice of you to say that, James. Let me say, I believe we had a good draft. People had high expectations of Peyton in the draft. We got Russell Wilson, and with the picks they used, I believe they did very well. Excited? Let's ride. We got DWI guys. Ethan coming in saying, good morning, Jensen Broncos country. Mile High Truth saying, don't make me have to Turner yell at you. Good morning, Broncos country. I like that one. Good job with the dad jokes there. Jeremy Sean saying, good morning, Broncos for Breakfast fam. Very interested to talk draft this morning. Sean Burns is in the house. Franklin Peterson. Good morning to you guys. Clee saying, who knew the Falcons would have a good draft after taking a wide receiver at 8? This is more so a conversation for Wednesday, Scott. But again, you took the first wide receiver off the board. Wide receivers went off like hotcakes after that, and ended up cleaning up, I think, day 2. Probably one of the better day 2s of the draft.
It wouldn't have been my pick, but that doesn't mean he's a bad player. So if I'm going to say it before, I'll say it again. It doesn't necessarily matter. It's not who you miss that kills you. It's who you take that can't play. And Drake London can play. He can play. Would I have done something different? Absolutely. But it's still he's still a fairly exciting prospect for you out there at 6'5" and a big-bodied wide receiver. And again, I like the big wide receivers. I'm just not going to delude myself into thinking that he's the odds-on favorite for Rookie of the Year. It was like offensive Rookie of the Year. He came out like number 1. I'm like, short that one because they won't have enough offense to make him offensive Rookie of the Year. So go ahead and short that one. It'll be somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they had a really good day 2. I mean, taking Arnold Ebiketie, somebody that I love, Troy Anderson, your guy, Desmond Ridder, and then doubling up at the edge, which is something we've talked about on here a lot. Doubling up on a position to really raise the floor of there, and you can use both those guys in Doug Malone and Arnold Ebiketie. So great draft by the Falcons. I'm excited to see what they do going forward. Hopefully, Oops, sorry. Go ahead. You can pull the next one.
Jacob Foster, the silent one with big stars, coming up on our first Broncos for Breakfast for May, kicking us off right. So thank you, Jacob. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeremy's saying Bonitto over Muma and Lucas, traded 75 over Travis Jones or Ryman, Dulcich over Marcus Jones, Leal Malone, Dean, trade 96 over Chanel Winfrey, turning yellow over Woolen, Let's-Go, and McCollum. Yeah, I probably would have, the way the board fell, I would not have taken, I would not have sat there at 64. I probably would have gone up and gotten one of those guys that fell just barely down the board, especially because what did the Bengals do? They traded 63 and a 6th-round pick to go up to 60. I would have given them one of the 5th-round picks after seeing what the Broncos got in the 5th round to go up there and get one of those last tier guys. But we'll see how it turns out. We can get more back to that earlier. I've heard some confirmed rumors, I guess I'll say, on that end. We also have Sean Burns saying, don't forget to like and share. Absolutely. Also, Jeremy saying Montreal Washington over Tyson Anderson and Braxton Jones. Yeah, that's the one that's sticks out to me, but it's a 5th-round pick. We'll see how it turns out. Ethan saying I'm not doing any mock drafts before next year's draft. It's best to acknowledge I have no clue rather than be upset. Nobody has any clue. Every team has their own board. We just we're having fun with it and trying to learn about these prospects along the way and talk team building and all get smarter. So don't get upset, Ethan. We're gonna have some fun with it, and hopefully this draft turns out pretty well. EJ, good morning, Nick and Scott in Broncos
Well,
country.
and like I've said a zillion times, it's usually about trying to figure out where the prospects will go, what
Yeah,
area. So by doing the mock drafts, we figured out, hey, Abraham Lucas could be available. He was,
yeah,
Chad Muma, these guys, who could be available and who could you choose from? And there were 3 or 4 guys that we really liked that were available in that spot. So I'm not gonna, I like doing the mock drafts, but just remember that's what you're using them for, not to say, okay, this is who they will pick. For me, it's more what range of prospects will you have to choose from? And you can narrow it down a little bit. As they were coming in, Nik Bonitto was a distinct possibility because I know that y'all were dreading it as I was watching it live. and, I think Eric was more upset. You're a little bit more level-headed on these type of things, but I think Eric was more upset about it at the time. He's like, this is a guy I've been talking bad about for a month now. And that's, but he's got a chance, you were drafting at 64.
yeah,
Again, that's the thing to remember. You're drafting at 64. That's basically 3rd round. So your expectations have to be tempered a little bit about what the type of prospect is that you're able to get at that spot anyway. And you're looking for traits. The kid's fast. He can rush the
yeah.
passer. Okay. If I can turn him into a 1 sack a game guy, I got pretty good value. So we'll see. We will see.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Clee coming in asking, does Ojemudia make the team? It would be an absolute shock if he doesn't. The only way he doesn't make the team is if somebody trades some value for him. He's definitely a part of the plan this season. Kayleon Green saying, yo, what'd you guys think of the draft? I think the draft was okay. Like Scott said, I went back and I watched Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, Texas, and Nebraska for Nik Bonitto yesterday. The cut ups of the defense versus those teams' offenses. And, you see the flashes with Nik Bonitto, but then you see times where it's like, does this buddy have arms? Does he like to use his hands? Because I'm not seeing it on here. Kind of shark thrashing. You know how sharks, when they grab meat and they twist, kind of like a pin drive. That's what he's doing, trying to fall into the gap there. And then I'm telling myself, okay, late 2nd round pick, essentially a 3rd round pick, late 2nd round pick, essentially a 3rd round pick. It's a little bit of a bummer for me on my end because I feel like there were tier guys, like the tier cleared up. The tier above them all of a sudden dried up, and at pick 64, you're picking at guys who probably go typically 70 to 80 in most drafts. At least how I saw them, and that's a bummer. And also heard from a few different people. Can't, I guess, directly confirm it here, but the Broncos did try to trade up to 60 and 61 to get Drake Jackson, to get Cam Taylor-Britt, 2 guys that actually mocked the Broncos in my mock, 2 guys that they wanted, couldn't get up. Then at 64, they tried to trade down, not to take Bonitto at 64, tried to trade down to 67 to about 70, maybe still get him there, maybe trade completely out of 64. No takers. So in the end, they're like, we like Bonitto. We'll just take him. So hearing that also kind of is just a little bit, damn it. But it is what it is. 31 other teams drafting. You got a good pass rush there, and he's going to be a fun player. And obviously, they were looking for somebody who's this hybrid tweenery pass rusher. Talking about the likes of Baron Browning becoming this edge rusher, cross-trained linebacker edge rusher. And a lot of us were like, oh, why would you do that? Baron Browning was so good at linebacker last year. Don't mess with that. Well, they obviously valued the guy who is that finesse, sub-package rusher that can do different things because they already were talking about moving Browning. So I'm trying to kind of piece it together here. Again, Cam Taylor-Britt and Drake Jackson right there. Only took a 6th round pick for the Bengals to move up. I would have done that, but that's completely hindsight. So I think it was okay. We'll see how it plays out in the end. Dave Glassman coming into the Stars. Thank you. And Kayleon saying, Scott, y'all got a QB. Congrats, Scott. Congrats on Desmond Ridder. 3rd round.
I think that was good value.
Great value.
Towards the, I saw him mocked at 8 for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Like that's when the mock draft people are losing their minds. When it's like, no, no, they're not. Desmond Ridder not at 8. 80, okay. I think what was he, 72 where he came in, somewhere in that neighborhood. That's a good spot to get him because he's a body. They needed a body. He's a body with some tools, and you're still looking for a quarterback in 2023.
Yeah, and he seems like an ideal backup. I mean, just everybody raves about his work ethic, competitiveness, intelligence, just a little bit, shoot and pray sometimes with that accuracy. So
Well,
we'll
that's
see.
why they went and got a basketball team to catch
Mm,
passes.
That's not a bad point. Mandango dancing. Good morning, Broncos country. Major props to Nick for her Herculean effort
Major
yesterday.
props.
Major props. And looks like Scott's Birds did as well. They did do well. And yeah, I'm still pretty exhausted. Have not caught
They're
up on
not
sleep
my
yet.
Birds. My Blues spit the bit yesterday against Everton. That's my team.
Spit the bit. They choke.
They lost 1-0 to a team battling relegation. Yes, it was pretty
Yeah,
bad.
that's not
So,
great. Yep.
yeah.
All right, Connor Klein coming in. So what's up, guys? I'm not exactly happy with our draft class, but it has potential for the Falcons. I'm very happy for you, Scott. Seems like you guys had a good haul. EJ coming in. Broncos drafted an offensive tackle in 2017 with Garrett Bowles. It's been 5 years since we've invested a single draft pick in an offensive tackle. Well, here's me just to push up my glasses real quick and be like, actually, the Broncos did draft Dalton Reisner, who played predominantly tackle out of Kansas State in 2019. So if you want to be specific, they did draft a tackle. It's just with his
Draft
arm
a
length.
player for tackle.
Yeah. Nope.
To
Absolutely.
play offensive tackle. And then they drafted a guy
Yeah.
that projected as tackle. We know what you meant. He's just being a
Yeah.
smart aleck.
I have to. I have no choice. Never had a choice. I think this is a good point here, and it makes me think that the Broncos are very process driven. And they tried new analytics out this season, but I do think that at a certain point, the Broncos don't value drafting a tackle more so than they value grabbing one out of the undrafted free agency class. You heard George Payton talk about it in the his pre-draft press conference where he mentioned, there's a bunch of guys we like in the first round, some early too, and after that, not as enthralled or enthused about this tackle class. Bringing some in a couple undrafted free agents, but I guess they just don't value those later guys. And from what I've heard, again, this is Rumor City. Hello, everybody. If Tyler Smith would have fallen to, early second round, who the Dallas Cowboys took in the first round, Broncos would have been interested in moving up. Alas, he went gobbled up pretty earlier than most people thought he would be. So it is what it is. I probably would have been happy taking Raymond or Abraham Lucas at 64, but Broncos didn't value them as much. And again, going back on this, I think they value the arm length, kind of pushing Raymond off the board there with his sub 33-inch arms. They have sounds like the Broncos have some pretty strict thresholds there, not just for the tackles, actually, but all the offensive linemen. So that's another caveat coming out of this that I heard. And they also value their run blocking. Abraham Lucas, not such a good run blocker on tape. So trying to make sense of it.
It just seems, you look especially with that next pick for Denver with Greg Dulcich at 80.
Yeah.
If I just go up 10 spots, there's half a dozen guys I really liked in those picks.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, at 79, JT Woods. Now, I like JT Woods. You want to talk about a guy with traits?
Yeah.
You're looking at Abraham Lucas at 72, Chad Muma at 70, Travis Jones at 76, Bernard Raymond at 77. What could you have thrown to move up just a couple of spots to grab one of those guys? I think, and Dulcich might be the guy you need. We said we need another tight end in Denver.
Yeah.
Well, you got one, but I would have preferred any one of those guys who just went just a couple picks earlier. It's not like we're saying, oh, we were at 15. It would have cost a king's ransom to move up 5 spots. What would it have cost to jump up in the 3rd round? A 6th?
Yep.
So, but again, just because I like him doesn't mean that's how it's going to be. So, and obviously, we'll see how it plays out, but I would have preferred to go in a different direction in a few of these spots. And we'll get into those. So
yeah,
as we go through, we can go through each pick and say, right guy, or, what would you have done?
Yeah, well, we'll see how it plays out when we're going through it. Hindsight's always 2020. But
Well, it's not hindsight yet.
yeah.
It'll be hindsight when we say what we're going to do. And then we look back in 5 years and say, yeah, what we said we would have done at the time turned out to be right.
A little bit of hindsight, though, as far as, we can talk about who's at 64 when we know who's going to be available at pick 115, 116. Like when you're making the draft live, you don't know that you can get Damari Mathis there.
No. But I do know at 64, I know Abraham Lucas was on the board.
Yep.
I know that. I know Travis Jones was available. I know that.
Yep.
Not saying, okay, I'm going to try and hold back and get him. How I want to do this little exercise. I'm at 64. Who would you have taken?
Yeah. We'll get into it here. We got to clear out and say hello to some people. And thank you for the support that's coming in, guys. Thaddeus coming in. Hello. Good morning to you. Mac85 City. Good morning, guys. Sky Griffin pumping me up here saying Nick did a great job this weekend. It's really nice of you to say. It it was a long weekend. I feel like we took a little bit of time to get our gears going, early on. We totally changes the dynamic when we've been doing 2 shows 100 times. Then you had 4 people, 5 people. But a lot of fun. I'm happy to be on the other side, but wouldn't have changed a thing. Thaddeus, let's go Denver. Django come in and saying, "What's up, guys?" Thaddeus also saying, "Let's go Jamar Johnson, 41." Jamar Johnson better bring his big boy pants and pads to camp this year because the Broncos took 3 defensive backs, that kind of profile slot safety stuff. So better get some special teams reps going there, Jamar Johnson, because that's going to be your avenue to making the team. Benjamin Flores saying, "Morning, fellas. Nick, you were cracking me up on day 2 of the draft. War of attrition. Glad you guys are having fun with it. That's what this is entertainment. We're supposed to be having fun with it, trying to educate you guys along the way, but it's not that serious. So I want to have fun with it. I'm glad if you guys are picking up that just having a good time, then that's what counts." Morning from Biggie Bronco, and talking about the support coming in, saying, "Mark Schrader, thank you so much, Mark, for constantly being a big supporter of the show. Great job this weekend. I hated missing out on Travis Jones. Time will tell." Yeah. Did Eric talk very much of Travis Jones last night? It does sound like there was a minor red medical flag that pushed him down. Not enough to obviously have him plummet out of the draft completely. I think we probably did overvalue him slightly in hindsight compared to the league. We were talking about him going 20 to 40.
Well, if it's medicals,
Yeah.
we'll see if we valued him correctly or not as time.
Yeah.
That's what time will tell.
Yeah.
But again, I think y'all said it popped up during, and thanks for the support, Mark, of course.
Thank you so much.
I think they said it popped up during the combine or whatnot. I mean, how bad could it have been? Jesus Christ. He had a combine of combines. He was awesome at the NFL combine. My guess, and I want to look to see, did he bench press? If we're talking shoulders or anything like that. But as far as his agility drills, his agility stuff was amazing.
Yeah, no, he did well at the combine.
Bench pressed is a thing. Very few people did the bench. He skipped the bench, did the vertical, 29-inch vert, 110-inch broad jump, 733 L cone, and 458 shuttle with a sub 540. I mean, he killed it. He had an awesome combine.
Yeah, he did. Surprised to see him fall, man. The Ravens had a great draft this year, as always, but Raiders and Chiefs and Jets and Falcons all really stand out to me as teams that drafted exceptionally well. Bryce coming in here saying, "Always trust Peyton. He's led us to great changes, but man, I wish we could have gotten Areza. Needed to upgrade that punter. Let's hope we never punt." Yeah, 3 punters. 2 or 3 punters off the board before Areza gets drafted. Good punter class. Very much a day 3 of specialists. I mean, the Browns kicking it off with a punt or a kicker in round 4. Broncos taking a very small school, diminutive kick returner that didn't test exceptionally well. Had a really good game against Florida, though. Some good return stuff, but very specialist-oriented day 3 of the draft. Curious your thoughts on that, Scott.
Oh, what's interesting is, Matt Areza coming from San Diego State, maybe the best climate in the entire country.
Yeah.
Going to Buffalo. That's one of those where, his longtime girlfriend just says, it's been great. I'm staying here in San Diego.
Yep.
So I think I highlighted that comment from Bryce because, he says always trust Peyton. The best player available, the trust the coaches, those are the buzzwords. There's several of them. Just make me cringe. Yeah. And the trust the coaches one, you didn't say it because you said, I trust him, I trust him to do what he thinks is best, not to make the right decision, because no one always makes the right decision. There's going to be mistakes, and that's okay. We'll say, they've got doubt. Nobody's making these decisions with 100% certainty. As they're going, you see us do this. It's like, why did you do that? I would have done something else. I'm like, you know what? I almost did. I almost did something else too. I could have been talked out of this real easy. Always trust him to make the decision he thinks is best for the team. But I don't trust the coaches to be right. That's insane. That's not trust. That's blind faith.
Yeah.
And that's what we're here for, to have some fun and know that, listen, I think they're going to do what they think is right. Obviously, I trust them to do what they think is best. We don't always feel like that about our coaches, honestly.
No.
Sometimes I feel like they're not doing what's best for the team. And in this case, no, nobody's going to get them all right. And we're going to talk back and forth about this. You see in the comments, it's like, well, trust the coaches. What do you know? Well, then why are you here? You don't need to come into the chat to tell us that, trust the coaches. You can just stay out of the chat and yell at your TV. We're here to discuss, debate, and have fun with it.
Yep, exactly. Dom, and also for a space for other people to discuss and have fun with it.
Yeah,
not just
absolutely.
us.
That's what I mean. We. When I say we, I mean the royal we.
Yeah,
all of us,
for sure.
All y'all.
Yeah, y'all's y'all. Dom in the house. Good morning, Nik and Scott in Broncos country. How do you guys feel about Peyton getting 15 free agents signed? Interesting. You got such a big class. I love the signing of Christopher Allen from Alabama. I mean, that first game this year against Miami, I think it was, that stands out to me, where he was unblockable, and then he broke his foot and was out for the rest of the year. So obviously the foot is a concern. Didn't have any testing number, but I really like Chris Allen there. Somebody we were talking about, Dave.
Some injury troubles prior to that too.
Yeah.
So he's had some trouble staying healthy. So if he can get through that, if it's a growth thing or whatever it happens to be, if he can get through that, you got something there.
Yep. Absolutely. And Pooping Hippo coming in saying Bonitto had 26 tackles for a loss. Great agility, but he gets no love. Okay, I'm going to sprinkle some nuance on this. Bonitto did have 26 tackles for a loss, but the Oklahoma defense, the 3-3-5 that Grinch played there, is not super projectable, and I would say exotic compared to what any team is doing in the NFL. What they're asking their front seven to do, it's a slant and penetrate defensive front, and that means that Nik Bonitto is shooting a singular gap along with 6 other guys, typically, 7 gaps there that you want to attack, and getting in the backfield. So a lot of times you see him run completely out of a play. And that was his job. He's supposed to be penetrating that gap, so don't hold that against him. But that sometimes you see him, make a play in the backfield, and he's right there. It's like, oh my God, what a great splash play. Well, he's shooting a gap. He's not reading that at all. He's exploding into one singular area, and no teams are doing that as much. There's way more read defensive fronts right now than attack defensive fronts. You didn't see a lot. And again, one of my big complaints watching him is he doesn't use his arms at all. There's no, forklifting of guys, kind of watching where they're going, discarding them and making the play. Now, granted, that's a little bit more of a power player move. Bonitto projects more, maybe even as a linebacker, translating to pressing a single gap as a pass rusher. But again, that's a concern for him. So why is he making all these tackles for loss? A lot of that is obviously the tools that he has. He is explosive, and he shot out of a can a lot of it. I mean, you see it with the test and you see it on tape. But a lot of the specifics of the situation he's in is because of the specific parameters, assignments, asks of the defensive front from Oklahoma in Grinch's former Oklahoma defensive coordinator Grinch scheme. So important to know that stuff.
We talk about this with running backs, about big guys who think they're scat backs until they actually have to learn how to run with power. Nik Bonitto's been like that. He hasn't had to use his other tools, his other techniques yet, because he can out-athlete everybody at every level that he's ever played on. That's okay. That can develop. Those skills and those things can develop. That's fine. If that's why you get him at 64, it's hard to get 6'3", 250, 4.54, and all those other things in this range. 26 tackles for loss. So that's a good spot for him to go and then develop. There's not going to be much pressure on him. Like, oh, man, there's pressure on Bradley Chubb. If he goes out and has a rookie season like Bradley Chubb, you're doing backflips.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's just, hey, it's 3rd and 12, Nick. It's your turn. You're up. Go get the quarterback. Let him shoot that gap. Let him go after somebody. He's going to have to beat somebody, but he can beat a lot of guys just with pure athleticism. So, again, he was taken 64th. This isn't a top 10 pick. And he's got top 10 type of physical ability. Now let's see where it goes.
Yeah, I don't know if he has top 10 physical ability because
it's in the talking points. We had David Ojabo there. If David Ojabo was perfectly healthy, their numbers would have been similar.
Yeah. The issue is I wrap in the physical ability also with the size, and Nik Bonitto is very small and not very long also. One reason I really prefer Jake Jackson, who's still a projection.
Listen, let me go through this. David Ojabo, 6'4", 250, 9-inch hands, 33.5-inch arms. Nik Bonitto, 6'3", 248, 32.5-inch arms. Okay, I actually read that wrong because the one behind it was 30. I thought I thought the arm length was identical, so an inch longer on David Ojabo. The difference between David Ojabo, who we had mocked in the top 10 at some point, and Nik Bonitto physically isn't that much. Who's got them all beat? It's Brandon Smith, linebacker from Penn State, tests higher than all of them.
Yep.
But, soft is not a good way to go through football. That's where you fall even farther.
Yeah. Yep. And no instincts. That's bad combo for football. Ryan coming in saying, "Good morning, guys. Why do you think they didn't go offensive line in the draft? And was that a mistake? Do you think there are better tackles coming in 2023? I think the Broncos have specific parameters for the offensive tackle that, and I also think that there's actually pretty good data that outside the first round, taking a tackle is, might as well light that pick on fire. I think you have about as good of odds of finding off good offensive tackle in the undrafted free agent pool as like drafting, outside of the top 100. Excuse me, coffee coming back up there. So that's I think that's a big thing there. If Matt Waletzko maybe fell to their second, fifth round pick, we might be having a different conversation. But who knows? And also the Broncos are okay this year at offensive tackle. There's no such thing as a perfect roster. You're always going to have areas of weaknesses, and the Broncos felt okay in 2022 with the trio that they have there. It's obviously going to be a big question this season. It's obviously going to be one of the biggest questions next season. But talking about 2023 draft, team building, etc. But again, didn't walk out with one. Is what it is. They also didn't walk out with a pure nose tackle, in my opinion. We're not freaking out about that. If they cut Mike Purcell, they're going to be okay. They have some options for 2022.
Let me add on to Ryan's post. Maybe they think they already have better tackles on the roster.
Yeah.
If there's not a guy that you think can help you, then let me find a guy who can. We talked about trying finding guys in the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds. You're looking for guys that can maybe play special teams. Offensive linemen, that's the thing. If you miss on an OL, it's over. There's nothing else you can do with those guys. You can, for punt block or punt return, kickoff, field goal block, those special teams, anybody can play those. Yep. I mean, to stand in a line and get in somebody's way, if you miss on an OL, it's a wasted spot. They're done. You can't really do anything else with them. So maybe they feel they have somebody better on the roster, and let's not waste a pick here.
Yeah.
Or absolutely. We've got other options in free agency that we can still get or trade. And we're not done building this roster for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. David come in saying, just got out of the hospital. Well, first off, hope you're okay, David. Hopefully it's good news coming out of the hospital there. Didn't see the draft. What grade should everyone give the Broncos? I've seen mostly everybody giving the Broncos about a C to a B- range. I gave them I think I gave them a B- overall. I do like that the Broncos were able to trade out of 96 and get a 2023 third from the Indianapolis Colts. I wish they would have traded back from 64. They tried to trade back from 64. Even if we could have gotten, a 2024 or 2023 fourth out of it to move back those spots, I'd have been clicking my heels for that. But they didn't. So I think they did okay. 5th round was a little bit head scratching for me, given some of the names that are on the board that I perceived, but we'll see how it plays out. I did not watch much Turner Yell for Oklahoma. Went back and watched. Good tackler. Thinks he's got actually decent ability to get his hands on the ball as well, which translates. Injuries concern me there, though, with him. I don't know what to tell you about Montrell Washington. That felt like a pretty big reach in my book, but specialists were going early, and if Dwayne Stukes was saying, that's my guy, I have to have him, and then George Payton is like, okay, that's your pick. If he doesn't work out, that's I'm listening to you, but you're the expert on that, so responsibility falls on your shoulders. C. Patrick Havner coming in with the support here. Thank you so much, C. Patrick Havner, for supporting us. We appreciate you. Hope you had a good weekend. Go ahead, Scott.
I'm counting up the teams: 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So Mel Kiper Jr. gave the Broncos a B- also. What does that mean? It means that he's not giving out too many low grades.
Yeah. Great on the curve.
There were 20 teams that had B's or better. So the B- ends up being, more like a grading on a curve. It means I don't want to be too mean about this, but he put him in the lower third. But, he also acknowledged that a good part of this draft went to getting Russell Wilson, and the Broncos are damn happy with that deal.
Yeah. Yep. That's absolutely part of it. Very happy to have the quarterback. Gonna have issues, but question number 1, is your quarterback good enough to contend? That's an emphatic yes, so feel good about that. Travis coming in saying, if these picks don't ball out, what are they going to do? Or is there enough butt lickers going to keep them on the pedestal? Well, you never know. I mean, players that fans talk themselves into sometimes can, have put up some really bad tape, and fans will keep talking themselves into it. Just kind of how it works sometimes. It's fanatic for a reason. Michael Kerr coming in saying, good morning, all. Let's go, Peyton. Not as many studs as last year. We don't know that yet. We'll find out. We don't know that yet, though, but definitely not the amazing vibes that we were coming off last year. However, last year we had the big dark cloud that was, this class is really good, but the quarterback in 2023 is going to be trash because the draft is going to be bad. Didn't see Russell Wilson coming, so it's okay. He also says, didn't find as many studs as last year, but I think there's more to our picks than meet the eye. We'll see. A lot of times these guys that are especially later on, round 5, 6, 7, the tape is fine, but you'll really figure out if these where the men separate from the boys, I guess is how we'll put it, in camp. I mean, it was pretty obvious quickly that Caden Stearns was a good pick watching preseason games. Like, oh, that boy moves. You're watching Jonathan Cooper out there. Oh, he already looks better than Malik Reed. So those kind of things in camp. People always say, oh, it takes a few years to see these guys. Sometimes, yes, but a lot of times you can tell the haves from the have-nots almost immediately when they walk in. So keep that in mind as well. So, and make sure you're tuning in the summer because we're going to be listening for that kind of stuff and watching for that stuff too. Broncos Sunrise coming in, $20. I love that orange. Looking like a Broncos Sunrise here this morning. Scott, you're muted. Scott, you're muted. There you go.
That's why I muted. I was typing something. I found a mistake I made in an article I wrote this morning, and I was like, I got to fix that now. So instead of, I did while you were talking. It didn't take me long to fix it, but I was banging away on the keyboard. Broncos Sunrise, love that orange. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Let me repeat all that. Good morning. What do you think of the center we drafted? Could he start? You know a little bit more about him as far as the play. His measurables are solid, 6'4", 300 pounds. Good length, 34 and an 1/8 inch arms, 5'2" in the 40. Solid as far as the agility goes with a 26-inch vert and a 4.77 20-yard shuttle. As far as on the field, close to you, you probably got to watch him a little bit.
Yeah, I think he's a pretty good scheme fit as far as his movement skills. Gets out of his stance pretty well, and also circling back, guys, because George Payton is still relatively new, and I know it's all these people saying trust Payton. I'm not even ready to crown the 2021 draft class totally yet because we want to see what they look like 3-4 years from now. You remember how quickly we were to crown that 2019 class 1 year out of it and how it looks now. So we're halfway through, or like the 1 quarter through. What do we want to see out of those guys? But center Luke Wattenberg, he's pretty decently athletic. Again, bringing it back here, the nugget that I got from the draft here is that not only do the Broncos value arm length at the tackle position, there's also a threshold on the interior position, and Wattenberg has 34-inch arms.
I was going to say, I bet he passed.
Yes. Yep. 34-inch arm length, very good there. Some experience at center and guard, and does need to get stronger, needs to get much stronger. It's kind of, I would say, honestly, there's a lot of similarities to Lloyd Cushenberry, but I think Wattenberg is not nearly as refined as a pass protector coming out, which, I mean, talking Lloyd Cushenberry was a 3rd-round pick, no duh. But I think Wattenberg has a little bit more natural movement skills than Cushenberry does. So Wattenberg, this is a guy you're probably not going to see this year, hopefully, fingers crossed, but gets in the weight room, can add some mass to it, and maybe becomes a starting center a couple years from now. Or even if he just becomes a valuable, can play all 3 interior spots backup for the Broncos, that's a valuable pick to get late 5th round. So I think that was a good pick. That was probably my favorite pick, round 5 by the Broncos. I am interested in Darian Turner-Yell, but we'll see how that one plays out too. Kathy coming in saying, hello, Nick, Scott, and Broncos country. You think we're going to with 5 picks in next year's draft, or are we trading Cush finally? We'll see who gets traded. I think that if the Broncos would have taken Cam Jurgens at 64, which apparently was an option if he would have fallen down there, if they would have taken Dylan Parham at 96, Cole, I know there was actually some interest there for Cole Strange as well for the Broncos, but not he went 1st round, so that's done. I'm not going to laugh like Sean McVay did, but I don't think Cush is going to get traded. Could see some of the fringe guys and former draft picks that maybe are now without a roster spot, McTelvin Najim, somebody like that, that could be moved for a 5th round pick in 2023. The Broncos last year, they brought in Stephen Weatherly for cheap. They brought in Kenny Young for cheap. I'm thinking it's going to be kind of the other way around this season for the Broncos, where they're kind of trading some of that back end guys, trying to start to get 2023 draft capital. That's my biggest regret, though. And I don't know if you watched George Payton's post-draft press conference. He's very methodical with his answers. I think him and Nathaniel Hackett did pretty darn well. But you can hear when he answered the question about, trade backs and whatnot, he's like, I really did want to come away with more 2023 draft capital than I did. I really tried. Not much 2023 draft capital traded at all, actually, in this draft this year. So I thought the fact that we were able to walk away with a third, pretty good at all. But
no, I think that, again, you can have three people look at the same fact and come up with three different reasons. But I think one of the reasons you're not trading out of this draft in the middle rounds for 2023 is because the middle rounds of this draft were really good. We were talking about that for, all year. If you wanted to trade out of the 2022 draft, you wanted to trade out of the first.
Yeah.
That's where you wanted to move back. You wanted to be in the third through fifth rounds in this draft. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. Michael Ronquillo coming in saying, good morning, Nick and Scott and Broncos for breakfast. Great 2022 NFL draft weekend. Let's go Broncos. Absolutely. We also have Eric coming in here. Go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, Eric comes in. He says, and with the bright yellow super, appreciate you, Eric. He says, context is important. Do you think that we're being more critical of this year's draft class simply because we have far less holes to fill compared to last? We have far more depth now. I also think it's because you didn't draft till 64. You can say that again and again and again, but your expectations are still, I'm going to get better in the draft. I already got my wife a Mother's Day present like a month ago. I said, this is an early Mother's Day present, but by God, if I don't have something for her on Mother's Day, I'm going to feel like a turd. So again, there's just those life built-in expectations of what you're hoping for. And it feels a little bit of a letdown, but I do think part of it is this crew, not me as much because I didn't watch Bonitto as much, so I've kept quiet on Bonitto. Liked players better that were in that spot. And we've been talking about it. Y'all have been listening to us. We're allowed to talk about it for months. Mm-hmm. And it biases how you see things. But we want to say, and there's enough information out there as well that it's not just us telling you. But yeah, I liked Abraham Lucas in that spot at 64. I liked Travis Jones in that spot at 64. There were other players that I would have liked. That doesn't mean Nik Bonitto can't play. So we will see on those. Less holes to fill. We may feel, again, at right tackle position, we may feel it's a bigger hole than they do. And they have, again, you trust the coaches to make the decisions best for their team, even if they make the wrong decision.
Yeah.
We'll find out if they made the right decision or not. Should they have gotten Abraham Lucas? I would have gone that way. I would have. We'll see if Abraham Lucas ends up being a guy, and then you're still got a hole at right tackle. Then we'll know. Right now, we don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. We don't know right now. And catching up on the chat here, I think we're going to zoom on ahead here. But because we want to start talking about this guy more in depth for you guys. So if you had any supers or anything, make sure you say hello. I saw Kathy's in the house too. So good to see you, Kathy. But yeah, this Broncos draft class overall. Scott, what is your first takeaway looking at it overall? And I'm just going to read through it here while you pick your brain, start to get your thoughts together on this. Nik Bonitto, 64, edge rusher. Greg Dulcich, tight end at 80. Damari Mathis, cornerback at 115. Owuzurike, interior defensive line, 116. Delaren Turner-Yell, safety at 152. Montrell Washington, returner, 162. Turner-Yell was 152, excuse me. Luke Wattenberg, interior offensive line, 171. Matt Henningsen, interior defensive line, 206. And Fayon Hicks, cornerback, 232. So first impression, just going over the names, thinking about it, Scott, what do you think about this Broncos draft class off the cuff? Any vibes, any feelings that stand out to you?
My first, impression was kind of meh.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think for the most part, that's how it was going to feel no matter what. Again, you're drafting basically at the top of the third round. Add Russell Wilson to that draft class, and now I'm like, hell yeah, let's go cook. But I love the Owuzurike. Now I've listened to Chad butcher it so many times it's screwing me up. I actually can say his name. Owuzurike pick. It felt like to me they went off the beaten path a little bit a few times because there were 106 players taken from the Senior Bowl. I watched all those guys. And how many of those guys? Dulcich. And that's it. That was, I think, the only guy that played in the Senior Bowl. So they kind of went outside of my best comfort zone. That's why it was great that we have such depth and talent on the MHH crew that I was able to lean on y'all for, talking about the rest of this class.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully you guys can see that on your screen there, pulling up the Broncos draft class. For me, my first and immediate and most emphatic takeaway for this Broncos draft class is this is a team that is gearing up to go for it this year. Out of this, looking at this roster right now, how many guys on this team do I think have the ability to maybe be a good chance to become a long-term starter on the Broncos roster? Nik Bonitto, I have serious questions about becoming a long-term starter given his run stopping ability on first and second down in the plays where I saw where he had actual traditional run stopping from the edge rusher spot assignments. I mean, that TCU game was, I don't know if Eric talked about this last night, but I watched the TCU game yesterday and boy howdy, woof. They were running right at Nik
I
Bonitto the
always laugh
entire
when you
time.
say "woof."
Yeah,
I
it's
haven't been able to like instinctively work that into my own conversations yet because it's funny.
yeah, it's I think I got that from Home Alone, Buzz's girlfriend. Woof. But
Oh, yeah.
Nik Bonitto, really good pass rusher, explosive, holding up at the point of attack. Anchoring is not there right now, and he does have his frame is small, but he also looks small on tape, especially his lower half. So I think there is, I guess, not meat on the bone, but meat on the bone as far as getting more strength on his body. So there's some hope there. But is he
Yeah,
going to be a
adding
starter?
strength is easy. Improving on that 4.54 and the natural, speed is hard. That's
Yeah,
harder.
totally. You either have that or you don't.
Yeah. I mean, you
The
can
fact that
you can
he,
improve it. Trust me. I know
yeah.
trainers that make very good livings making guys bigger, faster, stronger. But the bigger, stronger is easier than the faster.
Do you have any questions about him playing at Oklahoma and still not having the weight on him, considering what Oklahoma does historically, strength and conditioning program? Is that something we should read into here, or
No, I don't. Again, some guys just mature a little bit later. They have different body types, and we'll
yeah,
see how it goes. You can tell. I know. I think Eric said that y'all were talking about athlete butts too much. You can tell the difference between a college linebacker and an NFL linebacker because the NFL linebackers' asses are this wide.
yeah,
I mean, they just they're doing squats and they mature into their mid-20s and their 30s, and they just get bigger, stronger, and heavier.
yeah,
That's what the middle linebackers will come out at 220 and they'll end up playing at 245, 250. At
yeah.
least, historically. Now they start at 250. So we'll see. Again, for me, it's almost more like a guy like Derrick Henry, who we've talked about, or Royce Freeman. Can they run with power? They've never had to. Nick's been able to run by everybody he's ever played against,
Yeah.
So that's not going to be the same. And if he wants to get on the field, he's gonna have to make some changes to his game, to his body.
Yeah.
He's got every reason in the world to do that now.
100%. So Benito, I mean, the thing also about Benito is that in today's NFL, you're seeing the rotational edge rushers, even the best sack artists in college football or in football this last season playing 60, 70% of the snaps. And that's both starters on one team. That's leaving a good bit of snaps available. So even if Benito just becomes a super sub package player, there's going to be some value to that at pick 64. Again, more like a third round pick than even a second round pick. Or I guess he is technically a second round pick, but that very late second round pick. So gotta frame it in that way as well. He's gonna have warts, and he does have warts. So that's
my biggest, what would you have done in that spot? For me, it's pretty obvious. I probably would have gone Abraham Lucas at right tackle, or Travis Jones. I probably would have gone Travis Jones in this spot, assuming
yeah,
the medicals, and that's a big assumption.
yeah,
But let's say he was off the board. I would have rather gone either Abraham Lucas or Bernard Raymond in this spot.
yep. Absolutely. And Peacewag talking about linebacker butts is a type of content we all needed. Yeah, we like big butts here on Mile Huddle, no doubt, no lie. Kathy coming in also question how good was Von Miller at stopping run coming to college? I think it wasn't a favorite thing to do. He got better over his career. Wasn't his favorite thing to do, but Von Miller had innate speed to power among making contact with SEC offensive tackles that you don't see on Benito's tape. Benito, you can see the speed when he reaches guys, but then when he actually makes contact with the offensive tackles, goes a whole lot of nowhere quickly. Really, he's very slippery and very good at kind of ducking his shoulders with bend to get around guys. But when it comes to playing through contact, when it comes to using his arms, when it comes to speed to power, forklifting guys, it's just not on tape at all right now. And again, pick 64, not a first round pick. There's reason he fell, but I would not compare him to Von Miller in the slightest. I know some of the testing is there, but the tape is not the same. Absolutely, and Von Miller went 2 overall. No duh, Nick. That's probably not a fair comparison, but people keep saying Von Miller light. You know who I see? So let's keep it on Nik Bonitto here. Do you have any comparisons? How much tape have you watched of him, Scott? And do you have any comparisons that stick
No,
out
I'm
to me?
bad with comps because I got out of the draft game for a while. So like
Okay.
any of the like 5-year guys in the last 5 years, I don't know them in the NFL as much. So I'm not good. I don't like doing comps. I like telling you what I've seen,
Mhm.
and I'm not a comps guy right now.
I see a lot of so I heard some good ones for him. The ones that I hate are always like Diet something, like Diet Von Miller or a light version of Micah Parsons. It's like, well, those guys are freaking unicorns. So what is a light version of that? What does that even mean? But some of the ones that I've heard that stick out to me, one that will scare some of you guys in here is Shane Ray. I think Nik Bonitto is stronger than Shane Ray, but as far as like, really reliant on that wide nine shooting in the backfield and not using his hands for much power. Hello, my name is Shane Ray, and that's all I know how to do.
All right, now I got a comp for you. You know, you just described was Vic Beasley.
Vic Beasley is another one that we saw. That's a really good one as well. I think Vic had a
And
little
if
bit.
you get a 2016 season out of out of him that you had out of Vic Beasley, where he had about 17 sacks, that was a good pick.
Yep.
Even if he doesn't do anything else, at 64, you get one monster season like that. That was a good pick.
And Beasley, and 5-7 years ago, NFL starter because you saw much more attacking fronts, man per gap. In today's NFL, you're not seeing that as much. The teams aren't doing that because the Vic
But he
Fangio
was an
brand Staley
undersized
defense.
speed guy.
Yeah.
And think about it. Like, Nick, would you trade a second? This you're going. You said this means we're shooting for this year. This is an all in type of this year draft. This is what I think. Would you have given up your 64 for 17 sacks in 2022? Yes, you would.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying you're going to get it.
Yeah.
But if you can get one season, Vic Beasley like out of this guy, it's a good pick.
A couple more that stick out to me as far as this type of body and skill set. Yannick Ngakoue, always been a terrible run defender there at the edge. It's the reason that he's been on 4 teams now in 4 seasons. Has he even been on 4 teams? He went to the Jags, went to the Ravens, went to the Vikings, went to the Raiders, now on the Colts. He's been on 5 teams. Oh my God. Been a really good pass rusher, but kind of a specialist and not as valuable because of that. So that's one that sticks out to me as well. And another name that really sticks out to me here is, Bruce Irvin, who played kind of a 4-3 Sam role for the Seahawks and then kind of moved down to the line of scrimmage as a speed merchant rusher from that wide 9 spot. I see a lot of
I
Bruce
saw him
Irvin.
in junior college. And he was from like my backyard. Like I broke all the news out of Stevenson High School, and someone said, I saw him out in California, Mount Sac, San Antonio, I think is what it was. Just called it Mount Sac. I said, where did this guy come from? Like, oh, he went to Stevenson High School in Stone Mountain, Georgia. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So I'm like, how did I miss this guy? I found out, oh, he was in prison. He was in prison in his last year. That's how he ended up in junior college. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, that's how I missed him. But got it together, turned around. He's been great. Bruce Irvin could fly. Yep. I don't know what his testing numbers were, but he was one of those guys that could jump over you. I mean, he could forget his testing numbers, watch the tape. He could fly off the edge. Love that guy.
And that's what I see with Nik Bonitto. Now, again, it's very based on the ability to shoot from that wide 9 and play, peekaboo with his pads against offensive tackles because he can duck underneath some offensive tackles. But and I think he actually does a pretty good job of slipping off blocks if he's already got a good angle on that blocker as well. But if a blocker is squared with him, he's not going anywhere. Ryan coming in saying, isn't Randy Gregory sort of a pass rush specialist on the roster for sacks? Not much else. Randy Gregory does have issues with edge defense, but because of his insane length, he can cover across multiple gaps and plays with his hands, plays with his length. Right now, Bonitto's trying to dip his shoulder on guys, not using his arms. So that's something to look for with, I think, a big difference between Gregory and the likes of Bonitto. And I guess the big thing for me with Bonitto here in general is we talked circling back. Is he going to be a starter? I don't know. He's going to have to really work on his run defense. And I think there are 3 outcomes here. I think the ability to rush from 9 and also half of his sacks came up in a kind of I'm on the line of scrimmage. Nope. I'm now going to go into a QB spy. Quarterback breaks the pocket and I'm going to hunt. Which again, there's some value to that, but that's not super projectable for roles and sacks at the NFL level. You might see more of that this year with Evero. We'll see. We're totally projecting on his type of
and Nick,
defense.
if Randy Gregory was more versatile thus far in his career, he'd you would have had to pay him double what you did.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's what he is there for, his best feature. But out of an edge guy, that's what you want his best feature to be, is getting after the
Yep.
quarterback.
Absolutely. So Nik Bonitto, things to watch for here. I'm not sure if he'll ever be a great full-time starter, and for an edge at 64, that's probably the reality of most of those guys picked in that range, that position. But his path to the field, he's always going to be able to rush from a speed rusher kind of spot on third down and sub packages. But is he going to get big enough and strong enough at the point of attack at edge to play like a true run-setting edge look? Not what they were asking him to do at Oklahoma, guys. It's not translatable from the run defense look. Unless the Broncos do something wild here, which we don't see from other teams. But can he hold up on first and second down on the edge? Question number 2, is he going to transition again to that Bruce Irvin, somewhat Micah Parsons role, where on first and second down a lot of times he's actually playing off-ball linebacker, a Sam in the 3-4 look, more likely to drop back into coverage versus come at the quarterback. Who knows? We'll see on that one. And then option number 3, behind door number 3, only ever a sub-package player. That's okay. You're going to rotate guys, get after the quarterback. Not amazing return on investment at pick 64. You probably want a long-term quality starter there, but we'll see. But either way, he has his most valuable skill set, getting after the quarterback, so that's there. Dennis Chandler saying, which current players on the roster are now on the bubble to make the team? Byron Rules. Some players on the roster that are now in trouble. Andrew Beck, tight end / fullback, I think very much on the roster bubble now. Malik Reed, very much on the bubble now for me as well. And then you have like guys like saying Bassey on the bubble, Jamar Johnson on the bubble. So, and maybe even a McTelvin Najim. Any other names stick out now that I took literally every player on the roster, Scott?
No, that's where I was going to go too. I mean, the one that you didn't mention, we talked about early, and thank you for the stars, Dennis.
Thank you, Dennis.
Was possibly not a roster spot, but maybe it's Cushenberry.
Yep.
He's on notice for sure. How about Jerry Jeudy? Guys that could be moved. Those are guys we've talked about a lot. But no, I think Nik hit on those for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's keep it going here because we spent so much time on Bonitto. I'm still trying to process this too.
Yeah,
guys,
I was like, okay, and we'll handle day 2 and 3 tomorrow on Broncos for breakfast.
No, we'll handle day 2 today still because we got some. I want to talk about Greg Dulcich here. Greg Dulcich is. Oh man, Peter asking, did he miss his being read? I didn't see your your stars there, Peter.
This is the first one I saw. We've got a couple. The one that when you first came in.
Thank you, Phil. Beginning. Great show, guys. Keep up the good work. We really appreciate you, Phil.
Interesting. You have undrafted free agents. I did miss that one. I think maybe, possibly. I don't know. I'm getting old. So go ahead. I'll find it, Nick.
So Greg Dulcich. Apparently, this was a pick that was very much George Payton bringing Russell Wilson into the fold, which I love. Do I love that you're giving your quarterback? I'm not totally giving it to him, but giving your quarterback a day 2 pick versus, a day 3 pick? Maybe not. I'm a little bit, and this is something that I don't know who said this. This is a quote, like the best government in the world is a dictatorship if the dictator is the perfect person, like the absolute, makes every right decision ever, because then there's no, bureaucratic holdup or anything. It'll never happen because humans are flawed. But I'm almost wondering if the Broncos draft class this year maybe was a case of too many cooks in the kitchen, where everybody's voice is in there, and sometimes that's not always the best for these kind of things, but we'll see. But sounds like this pick for Greg Dulcich was very much influenced by what Russell Wilson wanted. Greg Dulcich tested good as an athlete, not elite, not totally explosive, not this Darren Waller, Kyle Pitts level freak, but again, talking pick 80, smooth route runner, played decently in line, has some work to do to be a blocker there. I thought he blocked pretty well on the move. But the thing that sticks out with Dulcich for me, we kept harping about the tight end maybe being overvalued with Russell Wilson because he doesn't use the short middle of the field. How about a tight end that had 3 50-plus yard touchdowns last season that averaged about 20 yards a catch in his career? Okay, maybe we would use that type of tight end with Russell Wilson. So going back and watching Dulcich's tape, I love his versatility. I think he can play H-back, he can play that big slot, and he can play inline. So I like this pick the more I reflected on it. Maybe we would have liked him, at 96 versus 80, but he probably wasn't going to be there. So that's always like the thing. Oh, I would have loved Bonitto at 75. It would have felt much better. Is he there at 75?
He's a good jumbo athlete for sure.
Yeah.
Where you ended up getting him at, would you pick him up
80.
at 80? At 80. Now, what I always say is like, okay, at 80, what were the other options in that spot? And I go down and I look at a couple spots. Could you have gone edge with D'Angelo Malone? Nakobe Dean was right there. I know there were some big red flags. He could have been off the board completely. He could have gone really crazy and gone someone like Malik Willis, Dylan Parham. But other than that, I mean, until you start getting lower, I do like Zachary Carter, the big defensive lineman from Florida. But there, in the next 10 picks or so, there's nobody that really jumps off the board for me. DeMarvin Leal, maybe. But there's nobody like, oh, man, I really would have rather had this guy in that spot. Now, if I look between your two picks, it gets a little easier. I like JT Woods. I like Travis Jones. I like Jelani Woods. I like Abraham Lucas. I like Chad Muma. Could you have moved around there? But, maybe you got the guys you wanted.
Yep. Yeah, and 75, after 75, you had Travis Jones and Bernard Ryman come off the board, which was a little bit of a bummer, but who knows about Travis Jones's injury for the Broncos, how they flagged that, and also Bernard Raymond's length and whatnot. So undrafted free agents coming in from Peter. Some of the guys who have been signed so far, Jalen Virgil, Kadofi Wright, have not watched him yet. Have watched Chris Allen. I really like that one. Caden Davis from Northwestern Missouri. Guess what? I've not watched any Caden Davis guys. Jaquan McMillan had a lot of good play at Eastern Carolina. The Broncos brought him in for a pre-draft visit, so he sticks out to me. Other than that, though, a bunch of guys that I'm probably going to have to wait until camp to dig through. But the ones that stick out to me, Kadofi Wright from Buffalo, did watch him, thought he was pretty good. Jalen Virgil, hyped as a track star, didn't run as fast as the track hype would have you believe, but has a chance to come in as a special teams kind of ace guy. And the other one that I talked about, Jaquan McMillan, cornerback, had a lot of plays on the ball at Eastern Carolina. So some names to watch out for there. And I know these are draft picks. You want to give them a little bit of time, but also the men from the boys separating themselves day one. You come out of camp and it's like, oh, yep, that guy's standing out. Like, didn't take long for, let's say, Chris Harris Jr., smallest signing bonus of any Broncos in that class that season. About a weekend of camp, Broncos like, oh, we found a good one here in Chris Harris Jr. That's going to be a difference maker for this team for a long time. So, Scott, any thoughts on Greg Dulcich? Not one of the tight ends that we typically drafted to the Broncos, but it's because in that mock draft simulator, we got used to tight ends being there at pick 115, 116. I will say, to Peyton's credit and the Broncos in general, none of the tight ends that we liked fell to 115 or 116. Every single one was snapped up. Jelani Woods went 72. Jeremy Ruckert went after the Broncos picked at 80. You had Cade Otton was the first pick round 4. I think Daniel Bellinger went really early round 4 as well. So all those tight ends that we liked came off the board. But Greg Dulcich, what a love his hair, love the mustache, really fluid athlete.
I like him getting out here to the second level. Again, he's a jumbo athlete. He's not a big tight end.
Yeah.
But he's quick off the line. So again, if I need to go out and somebody's going to be in dime, and I want a guy to go out there and manhandle a defensive back, a linebacker, he gets out there quick. That's Texas A&M safety. He's out there throwing around. So I actually, again, I like his blocking, but I don't necessarily want him doing it against 300-pound defensive ends in a 3-4. Let him get out there, and he's quick up the ball, solid hands. I think he can be a weapon for sure.
Yeah, and I really love his fluidness in space. 0-star athlete. Apparently, everybody loves the work ethic and the personality. Chip Kelly was, screaming about this guy being a difference maker and a leader. So excited to see what he can do. And also, I think this is not only Albert Okwuegbunam insurance. I think this might move Albert Okwuegbunam to a more big slot wide receiver role. You're talking about niche skill sets. Albert Okwuegbunam playing that big slot role. It's becoming more and more important in today's NFL, and we saw it actually utilized a lot with the Packers. They used Alan Lazard, who was, a 6'4", 225-pound, 230-pound wide receiver tight end hybrid there as a detached big slot a lot for that Packers defense. Martez Valdez-Scantling also used similarly, more vertical though. But I think this moves Albert Okwuegbunam maybe more to a full-time H-back / detached from the line of scrimmage big slot option, where Dulcich and Tomlinson then become more of your classic inline tight ends with some versatility as well.
Yeah, so. And Tommy keeps asking, where is Jerry in the slot? And unless you're living in a double tight end package, you have 3 wide receivers. Done.
Yep. Also, you're going to see Jerry, I think, with some Z as well. Not as the true X. You don't want him taking on press coverage too often.
There's more than enough room out there. I don't see him getting beat out for playing time right away by a rookie tight end that was taken in the 4th.
Yep. Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that one. And then kind of closing out here on day 2 of the Broncos draft. We'll do more day 3 conversation tomorrow, and keep asking questions on you guys if you have any about this draft class. But the last thing to talk about here, day 3 for the Broncos, trading out of pick 96 and getting the Colts 2023 third rounder, which I adore, and getting a Colts 5th round pick this season. That was my favorite move. My favorite move of the draft for the Broncos, going to be completely honest on that one. There were some guys there that would have been interesting, but getting one more pick, another top 100 pick in 2023, I think has a lot of value for the Broncos going forward. So happy to see that one, and also get a 5th round pick. We'll talk more day 3 tomorrow, but a lot of Nik Bonitto and Greg Dulcich. I don't think, and one of the reasons the Broncos, I think fans in general just don't have a amazing feeling on this class is that the Broncos didn't really get any bargains, perceived bargains in the draft. Nik Bonitto constantly being mocked pick 60 to 80 in the draft. You got him at 64. Okay, that's probably right about value. Greg Dulcich constantly being mocked from, 70 to 85. You got him at 80. That's right at value. So none of that was surplus. It was just kind of, okay, that's about where he goes. He's got some flaws. We understand the value, but you're kind of just getting middle of the pack grades and
Yeah, but
feelings on
then
those
then
selections.
the naysayer in you says if he falls, Perry on Winfrey at 108. Well, why did he fall to 108? Why do we take him then?
Did you hear anything about Perrin Winfrey? Have you heard any of the stuff that came out?
No, I haven't heard what's come out.
Okay. He's had some physical altercations with coaches.
Okay, well, those coaches gave up on the team and left. So
Yep.
I'm willing to
Yeah.
listen to Perry on side of the story.
Yeah. True. True. Yeah. You don't want your players swinging on coaches, though. But yeah,
Who
that's
swung
something to think about.
first? No, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I'm just again, I don't judge without all the information. So
That's
I'll
fair.
report facts on this, and I will look at both sides, and I want to hear. But I'd be willing to. I would absolutely listen to.
Yeah.
I'm not going to listen to it. I'm not going to read a headline and come to an immediate judgment for sure.
Yeah. Yep. No, absolutely. Let's round out the class here. We're just mainly talking day 2 for the Broncos. We have all week to keep talking, guys, about this draft. So have a lot of fun with it. Jay Roper coming in saying, Scott and Nick, do you think we reacted to the draft too harshly from an outside perspective?
An overreaction to an immediate incident? Never. Never. Yes, of course. There was always overreactions, positive, negative. It's always an overreaction. I like to say the first week of a football season is the overreaction season. Yeah, there's overreactions, positive, negative. So I can tell you everybody overreacted. Did I overreact to the Falcons taking Drake London at 8? Probably. Maybe. No.
We'll
But no. But yeah, of course, the reaction was too harsh right off the bat.
Yeah. I think the thing that is harsh in my vibe is the fact that at 64, again, I think that some of the people more directly connected to the Broncos would say, oh, that's not true. We always had Nik Bonitto number 1 on our board. We had a 1st round grade on him. Sure you did. But hearing it from multiple people, the Broncos were very interested in hoping to land one of Drake Jackson or Cam Taylor-Britt, even to the point of trying to trade up for them, and then trying to trade out of 64 with no takers. That's a double whammy for me.
No, what's nice is that it's that, when state media from, whatever the official site.com from DallasCowboys.com talks positively about why they took the player, I'm like, yes, of course, we know. Now, what do you really think? I know this is basically a PR release, but what do you really think? And that's what, we'll tell you. Doesn't make us right, but we'll tell you what we think. We'll be honest about it.
Yep. So, we'll keep digging in on it. And at some point we'll come back. I think Scott and I will probably I'll send Scott some clips and we'll watch some. And we'll kind of be like our overall hindsight scouting report on prospect X. I know Scott's busy as heck, so I want to coordinate with him with that. But a few guys, like I said, I watched 4 or 5 games yesterday of Nik Bonitto, just trying to get an overall feeling. I really like to watch the games in succession, because then I get an overall feel. If you kind of watch it, then go away, then watch it the next day, then go away, you don't get it all at once. I like to be immersed in the tape. Lawrence Rivera coming in here saying, hey guys, I've been watching quietly every show till I get more information about our new team. Been watching the video the last few days, getting my homework in line. No homework, Lawrence. This is just for fun. Consider it extracurricular, if anything. But we appreciate it. And overall, I mean, again, big takeaway from this draft for me is every single one of these guys in this draft class for the Broncos in the first, I guess their first 4 picks, which again, you're talking about, late day 2 to early day 3, have immediate pathways to the field. Go ahead, Scott. Looks like you were chomping to say something.
All right. Reese comes in. I was surprised to see the post-draft ratings and glad to see it was higher than expected. Now, again, everything needs a little bit of perspective. Mm-hmm. So, we talked about, I went through Mel Kiper's grades. He has 20 teams ahead of a B-. B-? Well, that's not so bad. B-, that's not so bad. You know how many teams he had graded below B-?
5. So the Broncos
2,
the second,
for those of you at home. 2. And you can guess 1 because everybody had us smacking our heads, the New England Patriots. And again, that's one of those trust the coaches thing. What do you know? You're not Bill Belichick. Yeah, I know that he doesn't get everything right. That's what I do know.
That drives me nuts.
I think that Bailey Zappi in the 4th is a wasted pick. That's what I think. We'll find out if I was right or wrong. I think Cole Strange was a reach at the back end of the first round. That's what I think. We will see. So what else was a little strange on that one? Those were the 2 big ones. Those were the 2 big ones for me. I know you weren't a big fan of Marcus Jones in the 3rd at 85.
The thing I liked about
Patriots got a C+ and the Dallas Cowboys got a C+. Everybody else was B- or higher.
The big thing with me with Marcus Jones was that apparently his shoulders were a big concern.
That's what it was.
What I had been fed.
He was the T-Rex arms.
He did have short arms too, but he was also
a double whammy for. Well, that's maybe because his shoulders are imploding. He just lost 2 inches off his shoulders.
It was both. He did have 0th percentile arms, but this again comes back to me. And another thing that the pick that made me scratching my head the most. We need to get out of here pretty soon, but the Montreal Washington one. I mean, when your draft pick says that he was shocked to be picked, that makes me feel not great about the pick. So if you take one guy in the 7th round, that's a different conversation. But there were still a lot of good players to be had on the board there, the middle of the 5th round. And to take Montreal Washington was shocking. And I know that he had a very good game against Florida, but sample size. For being a dynamic athlete and kick returner at Samford, he should have been, putting up stats like Marcus Jones did against that level of competition as far as a returner. And he didn't have Marcus Jones level return stats and data playing at Samford. Hello. I keep saying that. A really good game against Florida. Did anybody watch Florida last year? I mean, let's be real. Like their defense, you could hear like a yakety yak playing in the background when their special teams was out there running around. It was not good. So
father-in-law is a big bull gator. I know he went to at least, Florida law school or whatever it was, but he's a big bull gator. He is a nice, kind, level-headed man unless he's watching Florida Gator sports. And then he turns into the Antichrist. So I quit texting him and stuff. I'm like, he's down in Orlando, and like I'd see Florida do something. I'd like text him like, keep it down. You're waking the kids. 5 hours away. So I know they've been struggling a little bit. And it was on defense too, especially if I'm not mistaken that he had a problem. And their quarterback play was so bad too. Good Lord. What's happened to the Gators?
Well, I really like Billy Napier. So you can tell your father-in-law that they got a dude. He is rebuilding that program there. Modern day big time college football. I think Napier is going to do a
what is modern day big time college football these days, though? We can do this later. So we get into the dog days of June and July. We'll talk about what's becoming of college sports.
Yeah. Well, they're mimicking Alabama, Clemson, Georgia, as far as, the overall recruiting and development there. So it'll be interesting. Shout out to the Georgia Bulldogs. 14 of their 28 players in their recruiting class were drafted, I think, which is absolutely insane, absolutely bonkers. But the main point I was getting to here, and we got to definitely get on out, but specialists themselves went way earlier than we thought this year. And maybe Montreal Washington was the last one available that they wanted there. Let's say like Marcus Jones falls to pick 96. Maybe the Broncos take him there instead of trading out. But he didn't. The Bears taking, 82-year-old, I'm just kidding, he's going to be 25 or 26, Velus Jones there in round 3. Shocking to me to see him go that high. We need to see him consistently mocked, round 4, round 5. The kickers,
I mean, anytime you throw in a 4-3, you start wondering. I mean, that's okay. This is what we think, but don't be surprised. One of those, you throw a 4-3 up there at 6 feet tall, and you have a great Senior Bowl. So I wasn't surprised to see him, but he's a little older, so be it. But if I can get him, if I get a third round pick and I get a plus year a guy for 5-6 years,
Yep.
I'll take it. Absolutely. So again, he earned it. He earned it in the last 2 months, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep. Absolutely. So
But
before
talking specialists, Nick, it's amazing to me just how bad Denver's return games were. I mean, you start sorting. I go to punt returns and I go,
Worst
let's
in the
see,
NFL.
return yards. And down there,
I think they're last.
Denver wasn't too bad in punt returns, actually.
Are you talking average or volume?
Volume of 230, 230 yards. But kick return yards, 291 yards over the course of the entire year. I say scrap the kick returns, and that's maybe because I'm watching, Denver every week too. But I mean, the New York Jets had almost 1,400 yards of returns. They had a lot more returns, but that's just start the ball on the 25. I mean, 17 games, you had 230 yards of returns. That's crazy.
Yeah, not good. Not good special teams. Not at all. So I guess my big takeaway from the draft, and guys, we'll talk more day 3 tomorrow. My favorite round was round 4, so we can get excited about that. Really love the picks they got there in Awuzurike and Damari Mathis. But my big takeaway was, thank God the Broncos have Russell Wilson and forgoed, whatever you want to call it there, the 2022 draft class at quarterback, because it was as bad and bleak as we made it out to be. And we kind of started to talk ourselves in there just because the quarterbacks always go, so why wouldn't they continue to go? But I wonder if we're seeing a change in the thoughts and market on quarterback in general, because, Jimmy Garoppolo is still out there. Baker Mayfield is still out there. There's still guys available. If you don't have the superhero ability or traits, you're not as valued, and teams would rather just why overpay? And then also
why overpay for middling talent?
And why start your clock? Once you take that quarterback at one spot, guess what? You better figure it out in the next 2 years. Otherwise, boom, you're going to be out of a job. So,
but Lawrence, we talk about this a lot. It's about probability. I think one of these guys probably will end up being a plus starter to the NFL. Which one? And which one were you willing to throw your first round pick at? Because there was only one team that was. There was only one team willing to throw a first round pick, and that was Pittsburgh Steelers at Kenny Pickett. No one else was even willing to bet a second round pick that one of these guys would be the guy. Looking back over the entire draft, we've got 1,000 players to choose from. It's the old 5-star, 2-star argument. You guys don't know anything. This 2-star guy outplayed your 5-star guy. There's 40,000 2-star guys. There's 25 5-star guys. I bet you a 2-star guy is going to be the best player in this draft. So it happens. But probability, which one of the guys were you willing to take the chance on? I didn't like any of them. I said coming back from the Senior Bowl, I'm more convinced than ever that I do not want a quarterback in the first round. There were 32 teams at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah. So I guess that's my main takeaway. It's a little bit of a bummer the quarterbacks did not come off the board because if they had, guess what? The guys that the Broncos reportedly wanted there at pick 64 might have been there. 2 more quarterbacks come off the board. Maybe one of Cam Taylor-Britt or Drake Jackson falls down to you at pick 64 and you're doing jumping jacks in the war room there. But that's not the case. No quarterback. I think that's the latest the second quarterback's come off the board since Gerald Ford was in office. So that's insane.
When there were 72 draft rounds.
Yeah. Absolutely insane. And the latest, the first quarterback was taken since 1997.
That's what y'all said the other day. So I've repeated it as if it's fact. So I hope it is.
It is.
Yeah, but
that one is.
Good to be back on a Monday. It feels like it's been a while since I've seen you, and it really hasn't. There's just been so much going on. So Nick, why don't you get us on out of here?
Absolutely. Well, guys, we're going to be back tomorrow to keep processing this draft class and talk it through with you guys and keep bringing the contents and your thoughts. Overall, people are saying the Broncos did fine in this draft class. It's not the amazing class of 2021, but they were never going to repeat last year's class, not having the draft capital they did. And in general, the draft is volatile. The Broncos, I've heard, have went with some different parameters in the analytics this year that might make their board a little bit wonkier than the consensus. We'll see how it plays out. The Broncos had the most, according to Warren Sharp, had the worst value per their picks of any team in the draft this year, where they overdrafted the highest overall capital compared to where guys were expected to go. We'll see how that turns out. That could be a bunch of hogwash. It could be something. We'll find out a year from now. We'll find out 5 years from now. We'll continue to gather data and learn from this. But either way, Broncos got better this weekend. So make sure you guys leave a like on the way out. Thank you so much, Tyler. Also make sure you, make sure you guys are following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I am at Nik Kendell, MHH. Also make sure you're following us at Huddle Up Pod, as well as at Mile High Huddle. Is also BFB_pod. So that's our Broncos for Breakfast account, Broncos for Breakfast account on here. If you haven't done so yet, join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle, as well as facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod. And finally, subscribe, like, and share to our page on YouTube. Also, check out Scott's channel. We're going to be going live there on Wednesday this week as well, and a lot of good content on there. A lot of Senior Bowl content as well that Scott's been busy, making sure people are not stealing your stuff without giving you the proper respect.
Yeah, I get a kick out of that. Copyright disclaimer: Act 107 says I can use this if I want to. I'm like, YouTube disagrees. So,
well, thank you guys so much, and I'm still exhausted. So great job this weekend, guys. Thank you for grinding. It'll be a bit before we're all caught up on tape, but smack my head. Everyone have a good Monday. It's miserably rainy here, but it's a good day to have a tired coffee and contemplation morning at the office. So I appreciate you guys.
Perfect spring day in the South. Helps you appreciate the season. I used to say, when I lived out in California, I'm like, those days in May where you just put your face up into the sunshine and go, that's every day in Southern California. But you know what? When it doesn't change, you kind of take it for granted. So it's nice having some seasons. It's a perfect spring day in the South.
Well, good for you guys. I'm not jealous at all.
Good for you.
Quentin, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Sunny here in Germany, and Quentin saying coming in late, but it was good. Well, thank you guys so much. We'll see you tomorrow. We're going to keep talking about this draft class all week. We'll probably keep talking about it for the next couple weeks because there's still plenty to dive into from this. But get your Bonitto burrito, everyone. Cast the Bonitto and have a good one.
We already used the burrito for Nathaniel Hackett, didn't we? Doesn't he have the Hackett special at the local Mexican place?
Yep, exactly. So we should have known then. So this is all coming together.
Bonitto sounds more Italian to me. We need better associations with Italian food than we've had the last couple of years.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that. more steak and potatoes, actually. I'm bringing it back around. Let's go some Americana there. Welcome. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate you. We'll see you tomorrow. Choose kindness, choose compassion. Have a great Monday. Go Broncos.